So I have a question. If the reporter's not here, does the meeting actually happen?
Yes.
I think the tree is falling.
Oh,
Anybody hear it?
Okay, so, well, I do, but I don't know if, I have one. Nobody else does, though.
I have one.
You have one? Okay, good.
What
I
is,
will read the agenda though, but I don't know if we made it.
so the first item on the agenda is probably public comment.
Well, no, but we have to approve the agenda first.
Okay.
And then we'll do public input, and then we'll do announcements. So what we have is setting the public hearing for the water and sewer rates, which we'll do first because this way Dave can take us through it, whatever, and if he wants to stay for the rest, he can, but otherwise we can let him go home. He might want to stay for the wetlands. We need to talk about the wetlands litigation. We need to talk about appointing an alternate attorney for the zoning board based on the Park Point request for a variance in front of the ZBA. And the attorney for the ZBA is Joe Moriello, and because Park Point has to do with Moriello property, he needs to step down, and we need to appoint another attorney. And then we just, a couple of, we have to talk about the microphones, because we really have to make a decision, and then authorize what we're gonna buy, so we can get Ray Shelby back all the microphones that he's been lending us, and he's been really incredible about that. What? No, you haven't, but I just wanted to show what you're authorizing money, and so, I have what you're recommending. So it's just the board will then authorize it, and then we can just move forward, okay? So, but we need to just take care of that, because we have to finally, I mean, Ray's been really wonderful, because he's lending us all his stuff, and, you know, he does have a business, and he can't, like,
That's Ray of Ins and Outs, right?
which is
Ins
really,
and Outs,
he's
yep.
been doing an incredible
Yes.
job for us. And then also, if you remember correctly, we had a situation with the EPA, no, I'm sorry, NYSERDA, basically reimbursing 75% if you buy certain things, and they still have $125,000 left, and Chris has requested a couple of things, so I'm just putting that onto the agenda. So, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is so
Aye.
carried. Okay, public input. If you can, since you guys have not been here for all the wonderful public comment we've been having, we just need whoever's going to speak. You have to come up here and speak up here, say your name and speak up here, because we need an aid for the purposes of using the microphone, so people in here can hear, people out there can hear, and it's just what we have to do. So would anybody like to speak during public comment? No? You're just here to, okay,
does.
great.
Howard tonight. I'm here to speak about the wetlands law. This wetlands law that was recently defeated, prior to passing the law, many of the townspeople came and spoke against it, yet it was still passed. During the consolidation of the town and the village, we always talk about wasteful spending and efficiencies. Well, the wetland law has been nothing but wasteful spending. This is the second time it's been proposed and defeated. Creating a law costs quite a bit of money through advertising and lawyers' fees. The lawyer who wrote both wetlands law is the same person, Dave Gordon. Dave Gordon, in my eyes, with all due respect, is an environmental extremist. He's currently representing Friends of the Shungang in Gardner against the Majestics who want to build a house up on the mountain. So any environmental sensitive issue that he feels should be at the top of his list, he's going to be right there to defend it. Obviously, taxpayers' money is being used to write these laws, and also the same people in the town who are paying taxes are throwing their money into the hat to defeat this law. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. I would like to see some of the people who think the wetlands law should be in place buck up some of their money, and if they want to defend it, they should defend it. Maybe they can apply for grants. The town can apply for grants to defend the law. Raise money through other means. I'm sure Mohawk Preserve, Friends of the Shungang, Open Space Institute, and other environmental groups would be happy to find money in their accounts to help the town defend this law. I say wasteful spending, not only on creating writing laws and filing them, but not only on the lawyer, but the wetlands inspector. He's been kept on payroll even with no law. He helped research the affected areas, of which, when the wetlands law was written, only 3 or 4 maps were available for reviewing or making a law. The missing map was on the southeast corner, Ohio Road area. So we wrote a law on information we didn't even have in that area. This law is just going to continue to fail, and I feel that we should stop throwing money at it. I was just wondering what wetlands fell through the cracks between 2004 and present, when no wetlands law was in effect. Is there a list of wetlands law that we could have saved if this law was in effect? Below 12.4 acres, a wetland isn't considered by the DEC. Unless it's been petitioned. Has the town ever petitioned the DEC for a wetland that they thought should have been looked at or missed by the DEC? Have we ever petitioned? I don't think so. Please don't waste taxpayers' money by defending the wetlands law, because it will be defeated again. I always hear you listen to the people. I see a lot of people up here saying don't pass it. So listen and silent have the same letters in them. So I'm asking the town board to be silent and let the wetlands law go.
Thank you. Sure nobody else wants to speak in the audience?
No? That's all
Right. Hi, my name is Bob Hughes, and I'm here as a resident. I am the vice chair of the zoning board, but I'm not here to represent the zoning board. I wasn't going to speak because I know that many of you know the history of the wetlands ordinance. And, you know, the town wanted to know how we could or should protect wetlands. When I was on the ENCC back in 2000, in 2001, I was asked to spearhead an investigation and to get some information on wetland laws in the county and the state, and also what wetlands might need to be protected in New Paltz. And I undertook this, and it was decided with the ENCC that we did need a wetlands protection law back then. Certainly in the course of the years to follow, I know of at least 3 different attorneys that put input into it, their legal expertise into it on pro bono basis as well, before it got into the hands of Mr. Gordon. And now I think Mr. Rodenhouse has it as well. So, you know, I didn't really come here tonight to defend the law. What I came here for tonight was to say that as someone who has been involved with it for all these years and understands that you are about to undertake a discussion among yourselves on how to or whether or not to appeal the process for what just occurred in the courts. And what occurred in the courts was, it's not up to me to say. I mean, I have my opinion on it and I could say, but I think your attorneys could tell you that best, of the experience of the judge who weighed in on this case and of the implications that he said that were really unfounded. And as far as any type of public turnout, we've had the largest public turnouts for public information and for those that are for the wetlands law as well as those against it. And you expect that, I'm sure you as a board expect to have a pro and con and everything, otherwise we wouldn't have New Paltz. That's what New Paltz is about. But certainly the con, or those against the wetlands law, were not in the majority. And as far as the mapping that was done for the town of New Paltz was excellent mapping. And each site plan or each development that comes into New Paltz has to go before the planning board. And the planning board at that time looks at the individual site plan, determines on that site plan value alone, where the trees are, where the wetlands are, and then determines what the viability is for developing that parcel. And many parcels that have been developed since the first wetland law went into place, and even using secra sometimes on a planning board, wetlands have been saved by moving things over. There's a clause in the wetland that allows for, the wetland law that allows for a free survey by the wetlands inspector for the town of New Paltz to go out to any site that's coming in for their personal development to take a delineation and determine what the boundaries are in the wetlands are, what the quality of the wetlands are, and whether or not there could be building there, or it would need to be shifted over, or maybe not built at all. But yes, there's been many of the wetlands since this law has been in that have been saved because of the law itself. So I do want to say again that I'm also part of the Wetlands Protection Fund Advisory Committee. And the Wetlands Fund Advisory Committee was established by the town of New Paltz, and it was also established by the village of New Paltz, because in a lawsuit with a development here in New Paltz, we procured a financial settlement which went to the town and to the village. And the settlement that is here is the town's to use for wetlands protection or wetlands education or wetlands research. And that money is available to you, so it doesn't have to come from the taxpayers, so you can work with an attorney to appeal this process and get the wetlands law back on the books as it so deserves. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Who were the three attorneys that gave pro bono work?
Well, the first one was Chet Mirsky, there was Dave Gordon, George Lithgow sat in on some of the talks that we were having. And those
Jim
are
Bacon.
that I know.
Jim Bacon.
Jim Bacon was on it, that's right. Yeah, so there's 4.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anybody
Thank you,
else?
Bob.
Would anybody else like to speak? Okay, so does anybody have any announcements?
Sorry, that was fast. Clean Sweep is Saturday, April 26th. And as usual, we will convene in the basement of St. Joe's at 8:30 for breakfast. And we'll be given all the gear that we need to go out and clean up the streets of New Paltz. You can go to website sunynewpaltz.edu/careers/clean sweep, and you can actually register, and then we'll know how many wonderful volunteer citizens we can expect to help clean up our streets.
And I'm sure you'll probably be doing those announcements.
Every meeting. There you go.
Any other announcements?
Anyone that's interested in working at Moriello Pool this summer, applications are now available here at the town hall. Go into the front entrance to Susan's office, and they are right there by our mailboxes. So if you're interested in working in Moriello Pool, either as a lifeguard or as one of the gate attendants, feel free to stop in, pick up the application, and follow the directions, and Bill will contact you.
Great. Any others? Okay, with that, I'd like to ask Dave Clauser to come up. As we all know, the village raised their rates for the water and sewer and increased the rates to the town residents. In order for us to make sure that we're covering the cost, we had to go do a whole analysis, so we can unfortunately raise the rates on the users because we have no choice, because the village raised the rates, so we have to raise the rates, so we're not paying for water users, the water users are paying. So Dave did the analysis of what we would need to do to raise the rates in order to compensate and make sure the fund balances are healthy and we're doing what we need to do. So I'm going to ask Dave to take us through it so we all understand it, and then we'll figure out the legality of how we could do the public hearing and all that.
Okay. Village raised the rates.
Please give you this.
Okay. Village raised the rates.
To
and
town.
Went in a stepwise.
The village raised the rates to residents outside the village in the town.
Right.
Okay.
They also raised the rates, though, to
Village residents.
village residents also.
Okay.
In the town
So it
districts.
Same ratio.
Yeah, which raises ours, yes.
Okay.
Their
I don't know if
idea.
it's exactly exactly the same ratio because they created a tier system that they didn't have before, right?
Right.
So they created a tier system for bigger users and raised that even greater.
Okay.
Then they did a certain rate to their, village residents, and then they raised our rates.
Okay.
The tier system ends up charging more for the more water that you use, which I believe the reasoning behind that was trying to get the bigger users to use less water.
Or to pay more money.
Or for commercial users to pay a fairer share.
Right.
Yes. Which is how we
We
had,
can all give our different spins.
well, that's how we had structured ours, if memory serves me, though, a few
Yes.
years ago.
We talked about doing that, and I know we looked at several different communities and trying to find other commercial rates that were different from residential, and we couldn't really find any in Ulster on that. The village did set this up. It's a little cumbersome compared to the way we did do it, but we had the first 500, and then after that, it was so many cents per cubic foot. Now there's the first 500, which is the minimum, 500 cubic feet, which is the minimum, and then there's 501 to 7,000, 7,000 to 15,000, 15 to 25, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, and 100 and over. There's
And
several.
that was set up by the village.
That was set up by the village.
So it's 50% more expensive from the lowest level to the highest level.
Right. The lowest level, the minimum, goes up 16%. There's a 36% increase on the 50 to 100,000 level.
And it looks like 50% when you go a little higher, 9.0.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to be a real hit for the big users. I'm thinking about, say, Woodland Pond, for example. That's a pretty big user. I think they're about 70,000 gallons a day or something like that. That was their design flow.
And that translates to how many cubic feet ballpark?
And then how does that translate into an annual figure?
No,
He needs the engineer.
he needs, I see, scientific, it doesn't work, you need engineers.
Seven and a half gallons per cubic foot.
So that's 770.
9,300 gallons a day,
No cubic feet.
9,300 cubic feet a day.
And what would the cost
90
per day?
90 days. 840,000 cubic feet per quarter.
The village has already
Times-
implemented these rates.
Times
840.
times .098.
I mean, Woodland Pond is in the village,
That's
so,
what the point is, I'm just trying to
Right.
ask, is that the village already implemented these rates, so Woodland Pond, I gather, is already starting to get hit with these,
Yeah. Yeah.
But Woodland Pond is not fully occupied.
It's a great way to raise revenue, though, isn't it?
does this raise revenue, or does this just meet costs? This is,
For the village, it raises revenue.
Raises revenue.
It
even
may
on-
just be
even on
meeting
village-
costs at this time, considering the amount of bonding that they have in their water district, based on that entire water improvement project that they did.
So, in essence, so you're going to get your larger users to subsidize improvements to your infrastructure. So it does not just, the infrastructure improvements, though, did not just benefit your biggest users, it benefits everyone. So your
Correct.
biggest users are going to be paying more, while your residential user gets a smaller charge.
but, I mean, we passed in the town a water saver policy. I'm assuming that's pretty generic and that there's something like that in the village as well. I mean, it feels to me that the goal of this is to encourage people to conserve water.
The company, I think, were you there the night he presented? I was at the village board meeting the night they had consultants come in and help them design their rates. These consultants work all over the Northeast. And their experience has been everywhere they've done this, the largest users went out and found ways to save water. They feel very near and dear to their hearts. You are going to see SUNY New Paltz reduce its water usage. You will see them going around installing products in
Right, and
there.
there'll be gray water recycling for irrigation and landscaping and,
Potentially, you will see Woodland Ponds install even higher water-saving features in their building because they want to reduce their rates. So that actually is the goal. And these consultants have done this all over the Northeast, the company they brought in.
Dave, can I just, from the town's perspective, what, I mean, do we have any large users that this is gonna hit?
we have a car wash.
The car wash,
Okay.
that's about us.
Besides the
Our wash is on its own water system,
Well, they're paying sewer though, so,
I think sewer. That's sewer 6.
yeah,
But there's no
different story.
town-based businesses that'll be affected by this, really?
The DEC, for example, would be a bigger user. I know we logged through,
Joe's was a good size user, ShopRite.
I don't have that
yeah.
information with us. We put in 2 years of rates to see how this was going to affect, and there were some bigger users there.
Stop and Shop Plaza, I remember, was a pretty good.
Right.
The apartment building, the apartments.
Meadowbrook, for
Meadowbrook was a
example.
pretty good user.
Right.
So you're,
affect the nursing home if they move to South Park?
It would.
so in your analysis in this paperwork, you've looked at what our operating surplus or deficits have been in each water district, or not?
I've been trying to do that, Kevin, and I got something at 4:30.
Okay.
And actually, it was, it looks pretty good. The rates that we used, that we adjusted here a year and a half ago or so, and we were basing that on 2010 at the time, because that was the last figures we had. So we made that adjustment just thinking that that had to help, and it did. We still have a little problem with Water District 3, which is that very small district right across the thruway, the thruway and Genesis and the 87 and the mobile stations, like 4 users there.
Is that one at a loss still, or?
It's at a loss. It's lost $300 last year. The year before that, it lost more like 5,000. So we're heading in the right direction on that. All in all, with all of the sewer district, or water and sewer districts, we came out positive. Sewer District 6 is still a nightmare.
What are we doing about that for this year?
Well, you know,
Not the major problem. I know there's,
well, no,
there's
no,
the-
actually, the only, I mean, Dave did go look at, and came up with a plan for a new sewer plant. Dave and I did go meet with the DEC. We explained what the new.
they want you to tie into the
Basically
village
wanted to tie
system.
into the village system. We said we can't tie into the village system because all of the.
They'd have to annex the
they have to
property.
annex all the way up to sewer 6,
Right.
and that's not that easy. So we've been sort of like a little bit on hold as we've been working through the consolidation, but I will just tell you all that John Sansalone from the DEC is going to be retiring in the summer. He did call recently, and I have to call him back, that he did call while I was down at the Association of Towns to check in with us to say that there's all these grants out there for Sewer 6 that we could take advantage of, and he would like to talk to us about
Okay,
it
good.
because he doesn't want to see us miss the opportunity to go for these grants. So I haven't had a chance to call him back. I wanted to talk to you, so maybe you could sit with him to sort of say, what are you thinking? And if he's called to say, we want you to go for these grants, obviously they're now more inclined to try to help us solve Sewer 6's problems. So hopefully within like a week or two, David and I will go meet and follow up and see where we can go and what we can do and come back to the board. I mean, of course, I still think we should all just have one sewer system and not be doing this piecemeal, but we've got to deal with reality.
So the reality right now is that we have to adjust our water rates to be consistent with the raises that have come in from the village.
So what Dave had done, we knew that we were going to have to raise the rates. So what Dave wanted to do was go back and first look at, based on the rates that you had raised a year and a half ago, see how that's impacted if you stem the bleeding. It's obvious you've stemmed the bleeding, so then Dave could then come back with rates relative to compensating for the village increase without having to go above and beyond the village increase to take care of the fact that we're still bleeding. So it seems like we're on solid ground, and we can now just raise the rates based on compensating for the village increase, right?
So you're comfortable, Dave, that the existing rates will more than offset the increase that the village is charging our users
Well, the rates that he's bringing us.
and normal operating costs?
These rates will take care of the village increase. From what I see here, there's still some that they're positive now, except for sewer 6. They're not getting as positive as I'd like to see. Again, sewer or water 3 is one of them.
When you say positive, are you saying they should be generating additional revenue that is used to reinvest in the infrastructure to keep it up to date?
I really need a capital reserve in there.
Right.
I don't have that right now. I still have some negative fund balances in a couple of the districts, but they're in the positive direction now.
So we're going to be looking to build up the capital reserve going forward, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me just ask a question. What Dave was waiting for was to get some of the fund balances for the water and sewer, so the numbers that he did get, the outside auditor came in yesterday. They went through all the numbers. She took back a bunch of stuff, and what Dave got today is actually from the outside auditor, so those are pretty solid numbers
Good.
that will be presented with the AUD when we get that done. So let me ask you a question, Dave, because you did just get you created these rates without really having that information. Based on that information, would you want to up a couple of these? Possibly.
There's probably 2 districts that I'd want to push up just a little bit.
So, we don't have to, we can change whatever numbers are here right now if you want to recommend something different.
I would have to.
This has
That
to
would
go
be an
this
analysis.
has to go into it. This has to go back into Excel.
So now this is a question that I just need to ask, because what we want to do is...
Susan, you need your microphone.
Okay, I'll let Dave. So now it's just really a time thing, because we have to bill the water and sewer users the beginning of April.
Right.
Okay, so therefore we have to publish the, you're shaking your head. I'm just trying to work back.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
If we have to do this tonight, or we do have the meeting on the 18th, we have our workshop meeting and whatever, so I'm just trying to understand the timeline. If Dave came back on the 18th, we approved it then, and it got published for a public hearing on the 4th Thursday, if that works, or if you want to just do this, and we can always change them later. I'm trying to ask how we should go about what our time constraints are.
Can we change these
Well-
without a public hearing?
No.
No, we have to have a public hearing, so
No,
it's whether
you
we
have to
adopt
have
these
the public
tonight.
hearing after you have to agree upon these, and then you have to
Okay.
hold a
I
public
thought Susan
heering.
was saying we could adopt these tonight.
No, I'm saying that we might have to,
No.
no, we
You
might
have
have to
to-
adopt them tonight in order to have the timeline for her to do the,
Adopt these
No,
for the
you have
purposes
to
of a
accept
public
your
hearing.
rate,
Susan,
and
can
then
you
you would
answer your
set the
question for
public
me?
hearing.
Okay.
What is
no,
the
I
answer?
can't. I don't know the answer.
Do you know the timeline?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, that we need to have this done. We need to have the public hearing, and we need to adopt these at our 4th meeting, at our board meeting at the end of the month, in order for her to be able to bill in
Okay, let's do
April.
that then.
Okay,
So-
I really have to say, I strongly disagree with that methodology, and maybe I'm wrong, Dave, but if we were to adopt sewer rates and water rates at the end of March, how are we applying them to the consumption already and not applying, in other words, the billing's going to come out in the beginning of April for the billing period of January, February, and March, when those new rates were not in effect, not approved by the board. So I do say if we adopt them by the end of the month, but they will be billed in the beginning of July at the new rate, not the April billing, in my mind.
I know that the water and sewer rates were always set sometime in March, and that was in the past, this is history anyway, and it was always to be able to get that first billing in April.
Really?
Maybe that was off, I'm not sure. I don't know the legal
So
piece of this.
Well,
whether
how
what's-
can you, I,
it's a retro,
I
is what it
just
is.
don't, but how do you, that
think we-
doesn't seem fair.
We just have to check with whoever's,
Okay, that really doesn't.
Joe Moriello or
Okay.
somebody, to just find out what the proper
Because
method is.
because there's still even if we were to agree and just say, yep, these are done, blah, 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 we'd be setting the public hearing, okay? And then everybody gets to come out, and then if we were to change the rates, then we're having another public
See,
hearing.
Gene, I agree with you. Probably you shouldn't have a retroactive application of a
Right.
rate hike.
It
Probably
doesn't
not.
sound fair.
But your rate
when were
structure
these
might
passed?
continue, your rate structure
did
will
the
continue
village-
to the April of the following year.
But when did the village
No,
adopt
I would
these?
say if we adopted them by the end of March, they could go on the billing for a consumption of
understand
April,
that.
May, and June. So the billing, the beginning of July, can have the new rate on it.
But your rate would continue until March or April next year when you decided to modify it one way or the other.
Either that, or if the town was prepared, and if prior to the end of the given year, that they were ready at their reorg to increase the rates, that we could do it at such time.
Do that.
The only problem is, though, the only problem is that,
You don't have the data.
memory serves me, I think that was at meetings I was at either in December or January at the village, so they don't have their rates ready for our first billing quarter. So I guess what you're saying, I agree with you, I think though, Gene, is we need to catch up. So this year, we might be behind a quarter on raising our rates, but next year, we would have to we need to wait for the village to change their rates. So we just got their rates, say, in January. So we've
Okay.
already missed it.
Right, but so they
that's the
can,
reality. Those are the rates. How can we?
those are the rates for the village, that the
No, no,
village
no, no,
adopted.
we're
But
all-
that's
we're
the
still-
basis of what we have to charge.
So you're
I-
right.
I
So,
understand,
Kitty,
but if the
question
village
is,
did it
when
in
do the village
December-
rates go into effect?
If the village did it in December or January, then the billing period is March, April, May. So the bill comes out in the beginning of June, and that's when they'll hit us with the new rate.
For what period?
I don't think that.
The consumption
No, I
period,
think they're already billing us the higher rate, aren't they?
That's what I heard.
They're already
No,
billing us.
we're already getting the new bill. We're already getting the new bill.
We already have to pay the
They went into
village.
effect already.
They put it into effect immediately. As soon as they put it into effect, they've
okay,
started billing
so
us.
then, in the beginning of March, you get a water and sewer bill from the village that is for consumption of December, January, February. So all the bookkeeper needs to do is look at the rates and see if it's at the new rate or if it's at the old rate. And that's easy because we have all the billings up there. And if they did that, then they did a retro because the quarter had already begun if the billing period is December, January, and February.
So I understand what you're saying. There's another piece to the equation too, and that is that we just got data from the auditor with respect to where we stood from last year's price structure. So we probably can't set our rates until we get from the village what they're going to charge, and we get some feedback from our auditor about where we stand.
No, we know what the village is going to charge. They
This
already-
is-
But I'm saying there's two pieces, though.
No. We know what the village is going to charge. The village already passed their rate, and now we're trying to compensate. If I think, I won't swear by it. I'm pretty sure we're already getting charged by the village the higher rate,
But you
and I
don't,
think we've already eaten 1/4
but you
of the
won't
higher
know
rate.
how much higher your rate should be until you get his data,
No, Dave. Well,
the auditor's data, because you might not be setting the rate high enough. or low enough, depending on where you stood from the
Well,
prior year.
Dave just looked at it and said that he would, based on the auditor's information, he would adjust.
It might be 2 districts that I'd adjust.
So you might have to adjust at another level, though, Dave. You might have to adjust it based upon the fact that we're not going to charge a retro for the first quarter. So you may have to tweak it a little bit more.
Well, I mean, if we wait another quarter to do it, then we'll fall behind even that much more, because now it might be potentially 2 quarters of the village charging us at a higher rate, but we're not charging the users enough to cover the cost, which means at the end of those 2 quarters, Dave could look at those fund balances and it would be completely different, because we'd start to eat into
right.
the little bit of health that we've gotten to.
I think that whatever we do has to be consistent with when the village rates went up.
Okay, I
If
think,
they went up
That's the
retroactively,
first part, though. Yeah, you're right.
so I need legal counsel on whether or not we can charge the town residents retro after we hold a public hearing and determine what the new rates are, and then say, and I'm going to charge you the last 3 months at this new rate that I just adopted. I need to know if that's
I'll
legal.
bet you it is. I'll bet
Okay.
you we're just simply passing on the higher rate, and as long as we disclose it in the public hearing, we'll be fine. I'll bet you that's the case. That's my guess.
this isn't a voluntary increase. I mean, you know, the increase
I'm
did
not
not
saying
start
it
here.
is.
Okay.
I'm not saying
Do
it
you want to
is.
say it again, Kitty? What'd you just say?
The increase did not start here,
So, Susan, back to
but the
your
buck
question.
does stop here.
We're going to talk about this again at our next meeting, correct?
Well, I mean,
Based on that
The
Dave
new rate
feels
structure.
there's 2 districts that may need to be tweaked.
Right.
Would help. They're getting
Okay.
positive, but they're not getting positive
Okay.
as quickly as they should.
okay.
If I heard you properly, I think I remember from the budget that we are not budgeting any reserves for water and sewer districts because we had no money
Some of the districts do have some reserves.
Right.
built into it.
Yeah.
And I think when we set the water and sewer rates for the purposes of the budget, I think we tried to, if I remember correctly, compensate to build up some of the reserve where they needed to be.
We saw the ones.
So we tried to remedy that through the budget,
Okay.
because we weren't going to put forward a budget for the water and sewer rates, knowing that we were putting ourselves in a deficit.
Right.
So we did through the budget, set the budgets to compensate for whatever we believed needed to be done based on our best guess estimates without the information in our hands. But, but at that point, we had a sense of what we knew the village was going to do. They hadn't approved it yet, but we had the rates they were looking at, and so we set the water and sewer budgets based on the increase in the rates of what we believed we'd have to do as our best guess estimate.
So does this get tabled to the next meeting?
Well, we're not going to say table, let me just go back for a second and just figure this out. If we find out that, yes, we can, in March, bill at the new rate, if we did this we have a joint meeting on the 18th. If we did it at the 18th, where we set the public hearing, we adopt the rates and set the public hearing, Dave could go back, tweak some of these based on the information he got from the auditor. We can find out from the lawyer what we legally can and can't do. Assuming we can raise them in March, which would be the most, we won't get falling behind. You would have time at that point to publish the public hearing for the 3rd meeting or the 4th meeting for us to adopt?
It would have to be the 4th, I think.
You want to
Talking to you for the microphone.
stop.
If we have a meeting on the joint town village meeting on the 18th, so if we adopted the rates on the meeting of the 18th, then you published, we set the public hearing.
For
The
That's what I'm
28th,
asking.
it would have to be the 28th.
We could do it for the 28th.
Okay,
I don't know.
the only problem I foresee with that is if this is a local law, if the water and sewer rates are in a local law, then it has to go to the Secretary of State. Right, it has to go to the Secretary of State before it's into effect. So is that before or after the billing process, or do you withhold the billing process until it's, the return receipt comes back from the Secretary of State that it's been processed? I'm pretty sure that water and sewer rates are local law. They're in your code book.
Yes.
So this is amending a local law, which is a longer process. Really?
I don't,
think these
It's
are
not
set
local law. What it was
yearly.
is you just have to publish them.
yeah, it may not be amending the law.
You have to publish
Yeah,
it.
I don't remember ever doing a local law for water and sewer.
I do know you have to publish them, and we have to publish
Oh.
them, and what we go to hearing on has to be what we
Oh.
approve.
Okay, well, it's pretty simple. All we need to do is look in the code book and see if we have actual rates within the water and sewer code. And the code may just be written generically. Oh, well, then it's not a local law.
I think it re-
Never mind.
References
Never
that they
mind.
change from time to time in the local law.
Oh, never mind.
Let's do
So
it.
then I go back to my question, that if we do it on the 18th, we would have time for you to put the notice into the paper for a public hearing for our fourth Thursday town board meeting, and if there are no problems, we should choose to adopt it that night. And if we are allowed to put them into effect immediately, we could do the billing. If we can't, then we just have to wait until...
Well, I mean, I think the main question is, are these rates the rates that our customers were charged on? In which case, I don't think it's a question of, can we do it? I think we have to do it. Otherwise, those districts just start falling behind.
I agree.
I
agree with you.
That's, we all agree.
Yeah, I think, Kitty, that the only thing we were talking about was that Dave said that there's 2 water districts that he'd like to see maybe a
Right.
little higher.
Yep.
So that would be altering these, which he can't just do.
Yep.
It needs to go.
Yep.
So that would be the only reason why we're waiting.
You know, I would suggest that you go ahead with these rates. That the altering those 2 districts is going to help, but it's not, I wouldn't want to see this thing not go over the goal line and we not be able to charge these on the quarterly cost.
So you would like us to adopt these tonight? You feel comfortable with us adopting these tonight,
From what
based on
I
what you have?
Or do you want to pull out 2 of the districts, if it's smaller ones, and we publish everything else, and then go back, because we can do them piecemeal.
Or do you want
There's
to,
no requirement that you publish every district at
do you
the
want
same time.
to, do you want to spend 10 minutes and come back to the table?
No, he needs an Excel. Needs to be done in Excel
Oh,
and worked
no.
on.
Well, let's set it for the 28th.
But if Dave-
Because we got to get new
Exclusions there, too,
numbers.
on some chargebacks from years prior that I
Yeah.
need to make sure that I'm seeing what the real performance here is. I need to talk to your
And we
auditor.
don't have the right numbers
So
to put
what would
in
you like
for
us
that
to do
anyway.
tonight?
I would go ahead with this, and we can catch up with the 2 districts at a later time. I just don't want to see you go that close to the goal.
We
line.
can change them again this year, too. We can go back and do
Right,
it again.
let's
I
do
mean, I
it
hate to
tonight.
spend the money in the paper on it.
Okay,
That's the
so
biggest expense.
based on,
If
based
we're
on,
going with these numbers,
yeah,
Yeah.
And the
if we're
biggest,
going with these numbers, we can set a public hearing.
right.
and if we have to
That's
change
what
them
we're
again,
doing.
if we have
Yeah.
to change them again this year, we can. The biggest expense being we have to publish them in the paper again.
So moved.
Based on the advice of our engineer, he suggests that we adopt these tonight. So I have a motion from Kevin Barry to adopt the rates as recommended. I have a second by Jeff. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. And so now I need I gather, I need a motion for us to set the public hearing for,
So-
is it the 28th?
No,
Was that it?
well,
Well, now we can go
Or you want
earlier.
to do it the third?
do you want, what do you have free that week?
Let's
We're
do
going
it
to
our
set it
regular
for the
meeting.
third or fourth.
Okay, it can get in the paper by the 14th. We have a meeting on the 21st. Do you want to have the public hearing on the 21st?
Yes.
Yes, so we
That
need a
is the
motion to
question.
So moved.
Okay, but so we want to set the public hearing for the 21st at 7:15?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? Okay, so I need a motion to set the
Think
public
So
it's
hearing
moved
take
at
half an
7.
hour?
on the 21st
At 7,
at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock
So
on
moved.
March 21st, 2013.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Anyone?
Okay, who wants to be claimed the second?
Jean, she loves it.
Okay, Jean is a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried. Thank you, Dave, so much for your
Dave,
help.
thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Now,
As
Dave,
always.
did,
Is that out, do you want this in electronic file and send it over to the public? It's in Word.
These?
Yeah, just that
or
one is
just
the
this?
one that's needs to be published.
So I can send it.
Did you send that to Carol, too, to send out to us? Thank you.
you okay with that?
Actually, I think Carol got it. That's how we got this printed.
Oh, does she have it? Oh.
Carol has it
Oh,
electronically. Actually,
then I'll get
Carol
it from
has it
Carol.
electronically.
I'll get it from Carol.
Because Dave sent it to us electronically, and that's how Carol made the copies.
Oh, the extension.
So Dave, I think we have it, Dave, because
Thank
you
you.
sent it to us.
In PDF, I'll get it to Word and
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so next on the agenda is, and I don't know, Dave, if you want to come in with us when we talk about the wetlands? You are invited to join us if you want. Okay, so we need to have a discussion on the wetlands lawsuit. So do I have a motion to go into executive session for a discussion before the board comes out and decides whether it's going to take action?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Well, any discussion?
I'm not understanding why we need to go into executive session.
Because it's discussing action on a lawsuit, and I think some board members might feel more comfortable discussing certain things in executive session unless you don't want to.
I don't have to go into executive session.
Do you? Jean?
No?
Okay, then I guess we don't have to go into executive session.
You withdraw your
Okay,
motion?
so I didn't, no motion was made.
Oh, never mind.
I was asking if somebody wanted to make a motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Did you even make?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, but nobody seconded, right?
Jeff
I
did.
did.
Oh, so you
So I
withdrawing?
withdraw, yep, I withdraw the second.
Okay, okay. Kevin, I have to ask you legal advice for a second.
You can't ask me legal advice. You can ask me my opinion.
Well, I just want to know if
Based on,
I just want to know from a legal perspective. This is a letter from the attorney to the board.
That's
I just
what I
don't
had
know
you
if
read.
that's attorney-client privilege and it should not be shared, or it can be shared.
You're asking me my opinion.
Yes, I
What
am.
does it say at the
I mean,
bottom?
it's not really disclosing anything that's confidential. It just lays out what the argument's going to be, and it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Then, considering we're facing litigation, I think I do have a problem with not being in executive session.
We're not facing litigation.
We are
We're
litigated.
in litigation. The question is whether or not we should pursue perfecting an appeal, that's all.
Oh, okay.
So, do you feel that you need to discuss it in executive session, or are you comfortable discussing it here?
did you have any other non-legal advice that you wanted from Kevin?
No, I wanted to know if I could read this,
Why don't we just have a discussion about it first, and then figure out what we want to do?
okay, okay. So then what I would like to do, because I think it's the fairest thing, is to read the letter to the board from the attorney, in terms of what they're advising, if that's okay. That's why I was
Yeah,
asking for...
This is from the
basically,
attorney we're
the board has to
proposing
make
to
a
hire.
decision
Right.
about whether or not to finance the cost of perfecting an appeal of a decision made which struck down the wetlands law. That's basically it.
So, George Rodenhausen was the attorney that was hired to defend the last challenge on the wetlands law. And so, now that it got struck down...
No, he
No?
was
That's-
not. No, he just filed the notice of appeal.
George Rodenhausen's firm represented the town in its defense of an Article 78 petition that was brought challenging the validity of the law. So his firm handled the defense of that.
We have never, yes, that is true, but the first time around, it made it sound as if we did not defend the first time around, and I'm sorry if I misunderstood. I
Okay,
thought that's what you were
We're
saying.
just talking about this time.
Okay,
You were talking about this time,
Well, I'm
right?
talking about this time, but I guess
Right.
now I'm confused
Okay.
about what Kitty's talking about.
sorry, I withdraw what I was talking about.
I just
Why, you don't
know...
want to spell?
I just know when we came into office, there was an appeal, is that the right term?
It's an Article 78 proceeding to challenge the validity of the law.
And we chose to
We
defend
all
it.
voted to pursue the defense, yes.
Right. And then we lost the defense.
And then we lost, and as a matter of procedure, you can file a notice of appeal, but then you have to perfect the appeal within a certain period of time, and he's saying that we have to make a decision soon because that time limit is going to run out eventually. That's what he's saying.
And so George Rodenhouse was the lawyer who perfected the appeal the first time?
We're
Perfected the
about to
appeal the
perfect it.
last time.
No, but he perfected it the last time.
Well, he didn't perfect
have-
it.
Whatever the term is.
He filed a notice of appeal.
Right.
The question is whether or not we're going to finance him in perfecting the appeal.
Okay, so what the attorney sent on March 4th, 2013, the reason he couldn't be here tonight was because he's out of the state. So he sent this on his behalf. On September 4th, 2012, Judge Raymond Elliott annulled the wetlands law adopted in 2011 on 2 grounds: seeker, quote, hard look, and constitutional law. On both grounds, the decision is unprecedented. In our view, unless reversed, the decision will make it impossible for the town ever to adopt a wetlands law that attempts to protect any wetlands other than already mapped DEC wetlands and other previously surveyed and mapped wetlands. The seeker hard look holding is based on the fact that the town did not survey and map each wetland on each property in the town before determining that the law would not have a significant adverse environmental impact. The constitutional due process holding is based on the same fact. Judge Elliott held that surveyed maps are crucial to a property owner in determining if he is subject to civil or criminal penalties. He was not dissuaded by the law's free procedure for having a property inspected to determine if a wetland is present. What Judge Elliott has held is that before a municipality can perform its environmental review of a proposed wetlands law, it must survey and map each and every wetland it proposes to regulate, and possibly survey and map each property on which each wetland is located. The catch-22 is obvious. Until the municipality adopts the law, it can't enter onto private property to survey and map wetlands. No court in New York has gone this far, nor has any court decision even suggested it. The law under seeker does not require such exactitude. As we argued to the court, such a requirement would turn seeker into a straitjacket. The town wetlands map, revised to include vernal pools, was as advanced and accurate as any developed by any municipality in the state prior to adopting a wetlands law. The decision shows a complete unfamiliarity with wetlands law in New York. No municipality has ever attempted to survey and specifically map all wetlands before or after adopting a wetlands law. Although the state wetlands law asserted jurisdiction on the basis of aerial maps of wetlands, they were not surveyed prior to the adoption of the law, and most are still not accurate or surveyed. The federal wetlands law in place for decades did not require surveying or mapping to assert jurisdiction. Federal wetlands are covered by verbal definition of wetlands alone. The constitutional law claim is equally unprecedented. Under federal, state, and local wetlands programs, the burden is always on the property owner to read the definition of wetland in the applicable law and determine if a wetland is present. The town's free verification procedure was specifically designed to avoid any due process issues. Given that this decision would bar any feasible attempt to protect wetlands, we expect several organizations would like to support the town on an appeal by filing an amicus briefs. The Riverkeeper has, for example, already expressed interest. If followed by any other court, Judge Elliott's decision would lead to a major departure from the traditional secret law and constitutional law. Of more immediate importance to the town, however, is that as it stands, it permanently ends as a practical matter any wetland protection in the town beyond that afforded by the federal and state programs. If the town wishes to appeal, we must have a decision now, as the time to perfect the appeal will run out in another 2 months. If we can provide any further information, please do not hesitate to contact us. And just as a quick little aside, we were notified of this back in, I think it was probably around June or July, and I had asked the board for us not to take this on because we were going through the budget process, and I was concerned that I didn't want the budget process to get caught up in the controversy of the wetlands law, because we had too many decisions we had to make relative to the budget, and we needed to stay focused. So the clock has been ticking. We, we did not act immediately. It's about 6 months later, and so that's why we're now at the point where we have to decide to take action. We can't, we've got to make a decision. We can't wait any longer because, we did choose to hold off and, let other town business happen during the interim. So with that, I will open it up for discussion about how the board would like to proceed.
I have a question. It's really a factual question. Maybe, Dave, you can help me. I printed off a copy of the wetlands law from our website, from the town site, and when you compare it to other wetlands laws, it's pretty voluminous and wordy. If you go to town of Bedford and other towns, it's a lot easier to read, and there aren't as many exceptions. It's more of a general framework. But the only map attached to it is this one.
I'm going to ask you, Dave, actually to come here, because if you answer it, I need you to speak at the microphone.
And the reason why I'm asking you about this is, in the judge's decision, you know, I read what counsel for the town had to say, but in reading the judge's decision, he says, after a review of the record, the court determines the town has failed to take a hard look of the environmental impacts of the wetlands law. Specifically, the law is vague as it does not identify which town properties are located in the wetlands designated areas. That's one statement they made. Then they go on to say that the town maintains it has a general wetlands map with approximate boundaries, but admits it does not survey or map the lands of petitioners or other town residents. Now, here's the key language, I think, to the court's decision. And this is my question to you. It says, the town map does not specifically define the boundaries and location of the wetlands.
There's two ways to do this. We put this map together back in 2005 with the first law. We used the best evidence we had, which was GIS information from the DEC's wetlands around here. We used the federal wetland mapping that was available. There was one piece that wasn't available at the time, so we used hydric soils. We compared that with the hydric soils on the other parts of the town. It worked really well. That's a much more precise way to do it than the way the DEC's got their wetlands map. If you look at the DEC's wetlands maps, it looks like they did it with a crayon. And there's always that part that this shows you about where the wetlands are from what we could see from an aerial, and it's up to you to go out and tell us exactly where it is.
My
The
question,
only way that we could accurately show all of the wetlands on the town properties is to actually go out and survey each property, which is just,
but I saw a map that was generated by your firm that showed an overlay of state wetlands and then federal wetlands and then wetlands that would be attributable to the new wetlands law. But my question is, did that map ever become part of the new law? Because if it didn't, then the town map did not specifically define the boundaries and locations of the wetlands.
this is the composite of all of those maps, Kevin.
That looks like a composite of state, federal, and village.
No, there's no village here.
What's
I mean,
it say? What's it say in the
village is
key? What's the key say of the color code?
Well, you need the color here, but that
But-
shows that the village is the hole in
But
the
Dave, the
donut.
key at the bottom, what is it disclosing? Which wetlands does that map disclose?
I need to show you the color on this, but it's the federal and DEC wetlands is one color, a DEC buffer is another color, the wetland and watercourse buffer is another color. I mean, it's a multicolored.
But does that show the new, does it overlay, like the one map that I saw that was produced that shows the increased area that would then be subject to the law? Was that ever made part of the local law?
That was part in the 2005 wetland law that was part of the presentations to the public on what properties would be affected.
Okay, because the
This
court
is just the
couldn't,
same map that was used in 2005.
but I'm saying to you is the court couldn't make this statement if you had just penciled in a boundary of what the new wetlands area would have been based upon the impact of the new law. Do you follow me?
This shows where the wetlands are located compared to the property lines here.
But that shows where the federal and state and buffer areas are located, not the new areas covered by the new local law, which extends the buffer of the federal wetlands by 100 feet, places a 200-foot buffer around the Walk Hill River, right?
That's shown here. That's shown on this map.
Okay, so then
Those buffers are on the map.
I don't see that in the key, though, showing the new area. And that's, my question is,
I would need to show you the colored map on here. It's much easier to see the buffers and everything else in the colored map.
see, I looked at the colored map online.
It's probably locked in there. We used to have them all back there, but
So my question really is quite simple, is whether or not the correct map was attached to the law.
This is the correct map. This shows all the buffers, all of the wetlands, both federal and state. It's the composite of all of those other maps.
But does it show the new wetlands?
This is the same. The first law had the wetlands that were shown on this, and this is the same map. There's no new wetlands. The first law was reenacted.
Maybe I'm not making myself clear. Does it show the new local regulated area?
Yes.
Okay, well then how does the court make this statement?
I have no idea. I was floored by that.
The town map does not specifically define the boundaries and locations of the wetlands.
I could not figure out that response, Kevin.
So the only thing I can think of is that they didn't have the right map.
or they were talking about every
not
single individual
Parcel.
parcel. I think
Because-
that's-
Well, it's
Isn't that how
two,
the law reads?
Each parcel is on here. That's
No,
the
that's how
problem. It
his-
was just, I was shocked that
That's how his decision reads, but it's not.
so,
I didn't understand it either. Kevin.
because what you look at is you see the petitioners claim that the town didn't have a map. And then the town claims, yes, we did have maps. And then the court made that statement as if the map that they were looking at wasn't the real map. That's the only thing I can think of. So from a factual perspective, I'd like to know what maps the court was looking at when it made its decision.
Well, all I can say, and I'm not an expert by any means on ADIS law or law,
Because
but I just remember from the meeting with George, and I don't know, maybe if that was with you, Kitty, or whatever, that the judge's decision on some of this made no sense to begin with, that the judge didn't have experience with this, and he didn't really quite know what he was looking at. And so he might have had the right map, he just might not have known how to read it.
Okay.
During the first couple public information meetings on the second time around for this, there was a comment that came out that there's no wetland mapping, and how can you do this without wetland mapping? And I brought in like a 36 by 48 colored map to show there's the map. That's the same one that was there in 2005. That's the same wetlands that were.
Well, what's critical in any process like this is trying to map to the best of your ability. And so the state has a mapping, a set of mapping requirements as well. And what's interesting about the mapping requirements is that in the process of establishing both whether or not an area is wet or is governed by a wetland regulation, or in determining what class,
That's it, oh.
in determining
Send me another copy, because I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble tomorrow morning.
in determining what classification of wetland is, there's a process, and the state process is that you should engage in public comment and public input in order to produce the map that the community is willing to accept. And so that's why you look online and you see the state, they have to have public meetings, public comment before they make any decision. And I'm just wondering if we did the same thing in our process. Did we invite the people that opposed the wetlands the first time, come out and describe what their opposition would be? And maybe there would be a dialogue between them and the town about how to make appropriate adjustments so that people were satisfied that the map was correct and was designed to protect what you wanted to protect.
Kevin, I would like to take Dave out of the hot seat for a moment here, and you're welcome to jump back in. But we did have an extensive public hearing, public information, and public input process. And
On the mapping issue?
well, mapping came up a lot.
Okay.
And I think that our potential attorney here has really identified the brick wall, which is that while people who opposed the law said you can't go ahead unless you map every single possible wetland in our community, on the other hand, you are not welcome to come onto my property and map it.
No, but the decision
so-
doesn't say that you have to, and the case law doesn't say that you have to map everything, but you have to provide at least the boundary showing where it's going to be. And that's what I'm wondering, whether or not there was an appropriate map that was submitted,
Well,
because...
this map, as far as all of our technical experts told us, did meet that requirement. And there was a lot of discussion about the fact that within the boundaries, it did not delineate wetlands that landowners said were on their property, but were not willing to open up for inspection. And we're not required to.
Right.
As we understood the law, there was no requirement that every homeowner, we did go with the Metropolitan Conservation Association and try to do a wildlife inventory throughout the town, and it was completely voluntary. And a lot of homeowners said, yes, you're free to go out onto my woods, and a lot of homeowners said no.
See, I don't
So-
think this is the correct map. Because I've seen
Well-
a different, I'm just kidding. I've seen a different map that has a lot more blue on it than this.
Are you sure that wasn't our floodplain map?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, there's a floodplain map, Kevin, I think you might be referring to. That was the one that we were using for insurance. And Dave, help get my reference on that. There's a map that was used for insurance rates.
No.
Which was very controversial, and that had some errors in it. That came from FEMA, that came from FEMA, and that proved to be parts of it were actually incorrect.
See, I've
That
seen-
was corrected. The wetlands one, and I know Kitty was at many of the meetings, and I remember Susan being at one, I believe, at the community center. I remember being down here a few hot, sweaty July and August nights. We watched the movie.
We had 2 years. We had 2
Yeah,
years
I mean,
of
I
public
would,
information sessions.
I remember attending at least a good 8 or 10 meetings, public meetings. We showed that video actually at 2 of them that was produced with money that was from a
The same
grant.
fund, the same, right.
The wetlands
Right.
money was used to produce a video which was shown on public access multiple times. The map, we had maps out that were multiple times discussed.
Kevin, I don't think there was ever any dispute about the wetlands on this map, but what you're saying was...
I'm saying there's another series of maps that exist that show a federal overlay, a state overlay, and then the new projected overlay.
Well, this has the state, this has the federal, and well, I'll let
This has the buffer zone, it has everything that's in the law.
Okay. Then when I saw,
I think the one you're thinking of, though, I think the one you're thinking of might be the one that was used
Floodplain?
for the floodplain law.
No.
And that does have a lot more blue on it, a lot of blue.
I wonder if maybe you saw some of the open space maps, which had lots of different layers of scenic vistas and wildlife corridors. They had lots of different overlays.
well, I'm just asking this question because in reading the decision, it seems to me that the only way the judge could have said what he said is if he was looking at a map that didn't have a boundary on it, because that's what he said. Didn't define the boundaries. Now, obviously, the vernal pools you couldn't define, but for the most part, you could.
I guess I would respond to that's why we have appeals courts, right?
For a judge.
That would be horrible,
You
wouldn't
really
it?
need to have that full-size map
But-
with the color coded.
I think and maybe that has to be, submitted, but what I do just remember in a little bit of conversations with the attorney after the fact was the disbelief of that particular line, because I do know that Mr. Rodenhouse, I think if I remember correctly, had said that he never saw a more detailed map, and that he never saw a community do a better job with actually mapping everything out, and that's why he was incredulous that they were throwing it out on basically that particular.
Right, so my first point is simply we should check to see what was reviewed, that's all. The map itself, to make sure there wasn't a mistake made there, all right? So that's my first point. My second point about this is just a general point, and I just want my questions answered because they're just reasonable questions. We've spent about $200,000 to $250,000 on this process, and it's not a question of spending money. It's a question of whether or not the money was well spent. So my question to you is, given the current regulatory framework for wetlands, you have federal wetlands and you have state wetlands. You have the state, which basically will regulate areas that are 12.4 acres in size and greater, but they're willing to regulate wetlands less than 12.4 acres if they're deemed of unusual local importance. And all of the recitations in our local law about the things that we want to protect, all you have to do is explain to the state DEC that you have one of those benefits contained in the relevant section of the environmental conservation law for you to protect an area that's less than 12.4. And there's A through I on this chart, which talks about flood and storm control, wildlife habitat, surface water resources, hunting, fishing, birds, nesting birds, erosion control, all those things that you basically want to regulate, you can regulate under the existing regulatory structure if you choose to. All right, so my question is, it's money well spent, the 250 is money well spent if the existing regulatory framework has failed us. So what proof do we have that it has failed us and in some way harmed our community? Okay, because if the existing regulatory framework protects us from things, then we don't need to have another layer of regulation. So I guess my first question is, how did the existing regulatory framework fail us specifically? Okay? And the second question is, what are we trying to protect the wetlands from? We're talking about protecting wetlands from what? Specifically in New Paltz, what's our primary concern? Is it pollution from the village sewer plant when it rains too much? Is that our primary reason for protection, or what is it? Is it development?
Just as a point of order, I think it's fair for us to spend some time going back over the 10 years of research and data and review and professional exploration that we've asked our engineer and attorneys to produce. I think we can spend a little bit of time on that tonight, but that is not actually the item that is on our agenda. So if if you want to have a review of the benefits of the wetlands law, I think it's fair to spend a little bit of time on that. But I've seen in the deliberations of the town board and the village board in recent meetings that an agenda can be moved from the actual goal post to a different place over the course of a discussion. And I think what I'm afraid of is that we're going to end up with a little bit more board fatigue, and we're not really going to get into a discussion of whether or not we want to allocate some of the money that is not raised from taxpayers that is available to use to defend this suit. And I think that's the discussion. If members of this board are philosophically or legally or any other reason opposed to the wetlands law, then we should hear that. But if that's the basis for not wanting to pursue a defense to perfect the appeal, to use the technical language, then that should be stated. But I don't, what I don't want to see this devolve into is another rehashing of
I understand that.
Misinformation.
But,
I don't believe we spent
I don't think there should be any misinformation.
$250,000
But all
on
I'm at,
wetlands
yes,
law.
we did.
I do, you know what?
I got
have
the
looked
stuff from Patty.
Yeah, and we have paid a lot of money to a lot of attorneys on a lot of issues.
It's not a question of money.
Well,
It's
but
not.
It was your question.
No, my question is very specific. It is money well spent if we're not being protected by the existing regulatory framework. And if there's some specific harm that we've identified in New Paltz that needs to be addressed, one of those two things. I'm asking a very simple question.
And you did ask it at our public information meetings.
And I
at our
haven't
public
gotten an
hearings.
answer yet.
Well, with all due respect, Kevin, you didn't like the answer.
I didn't get an answer.
You know,
Dave seems
there is a quick answer to it.
Dave wants to jump in, so let him.
I work in a lot of towns in the Hudson Valley, and I've never seen one wetland yet that has been petitioned by any town as a special wetland that should be protected by the DEC. It doesn't happen. The DEC certainly doesn't encourage it either. I have come across many wetlands, 40 or 50 acres, well over the 12.4, that weren't mapped by the DEC. We were able to talk to the developer to try to convince him that they could be mapped, and therefore we got buffers. But we ended up negotiating a buffer because the DEC said we may map it in another 5 years. So there are wetlands more than 12.4 acres out there that are not regulated by the DEC, that are prone to development pressures, let me put it that way. In New Paltz, I have seen wetlands that have been destroyed, totally wiped out, where the framework didn't work. I don't really feel like I should be giving addresses on that. Some of it was, I'm going to say, ignorance. They didn't realize what they were doing. But I have seen it. I think your building department records also have those.
You notice that other towns handle these things through the planning process. They have people identify any wetlands on their property, and through the planning process, they eliminate almost all the concerns.
Depends on the planning board.
Well,
It's very
the town of
discretionary.
Poughkeepsie was considering the very same kind of law, and based upon input from the community, from lawyers, from property owners, from advocates, the whole group, they decided not to pass a wetlands law, but to put bigger and greater teeth into their planning process so that you would protect the very things that you're trying to protect without creating this whole big new law, which, by the way, if you read, has anybody read through this thing?
Yes.
And I'm sure you have, okay?
I've read the whole
I
thing.
mean, when you read through the whole thing, so the existing regulatory framework, you're saying then, doesn't necessarily work because nobody has applied for protection for areas less than 12.4.
I've never known of any town that's
But
applied for
you
protection for
legally
less.
can if you want to, right?
Legally can, but I would think there are, I forget how many wetlands in the town of New Paltz that have been identified, 1,500, something on that order. They'll take them one at a time. That's quite a
I
process.
also want to point out that in the preface of the law, we point out that the DEC itself has said they don't have the
Manpower.
staff they need to
So then we're going to take on that cost.
Right now, the DEC
Yes.
has
Yes.
got another, I believe, 1,500 or 2,000 acres of wetlands that they have mapped in the town of New Paltz that is not on their maps yet because they don't have the money to hold public hearings.
And did you see what
That process.
what the towns in Orange County are doing? When the DEC has recently told them that they're going to increase the number of acres subject to the wetlands law, the state wetlands law, they're actually thinking about suing the state because what they're doing, I mean, there's a whole list of town, have you read any of those resolutions from town boards objecting to an increase in the
I
inventory?
can think of several towns in Orange County that would object to that.
Okay.
Those wetlands weren't made, yesterday or when they were mapped. Those wetlands, I mean, they're the kidneys of the earth. They are very important.
Right.
They really do the job. I mean, they're the environmental savior of clean water.
Okay, so my second question is, has there been identified any specific harm
yes.
that has occurred
Sure.
to our water supply, our breeding areas, or anything like that as a result of past practices of, say, planning boards who've allowed people to fill in
Well,
wetlands?
sorry, I have to answer some of these things because I was on the board during the big flood of, I think it was 2009, and Springtown was just completely underwater for days and days. Caroline Paulson, who was originally an opponent of the wetlands law.
I was out, I live on Kleinkill, so I know the flood.
Okay, so after that, we were sending boats back and forth, and I think that's when the rescue over the rail trail occurred.
Was that Ben Campbell's dad?
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a series of community forums after that because, we wanted to get a telephone tree started. We wanted to make sure that people were alerted if there was a serious storm coming. And one of the things we learned was that the county health department came down and said, none of you should drink your water because all of your wells were under the Wallkill River and all of your septic fields were under the Wallkill River.
Right.
So yes, that is an pretty good example of the harm that comes from flooding when we don't protect our wetlands. We have, from Irene, it's true that our wetlands law doesn't extend into the village, but the village was impacted in catastrophic ways. I mean, basements in the village, 3 feet of water, all of the wonderful things that come out of the sewer system into your basement were there. And a year ago, you'll recall that our building inspector came and asked us if we wanted to sign on to a FEMA program which would help homeowners sell their property if it seemed beyond reclamation.
And it hasn't worked out that way for
And
the people
guess
that
what?
wanted to sell.
Guess what? It turns out that because, and Stacy spent weeks jumping through the hoops to get, and she had a lot of people say, I give, uncle, I just want to get out from under this house. And she jumped through all of the hoops and was ready to start submitting these things when they said, by the way, you have to show us your flood mitigation plan. So if you would like to champion that next piece of legislation.
So the people...
We don't have a flood mitigation plan.
The one person that I know that wanted to get their house purchased was denied.
Because we don't have a flood mitigation
Okay.
plan.
So...
But she said there were several people. And so that is another
So,
example
but
of
the
the hardship that comes from flooding.
the flooding and the wetlands issue, in my mind, are connected but not.
No, that's actually not, it
They're
was proven
connected.
different, though.
Let me
Kevin, another
explain.
one, though, another.
They're connected because your wetlands areas can be a watershed for flood waters. I understand that. But we have somebody here who is an expert on really why a lot of the flooding was occurring along the Wallkill River when it shouldn't have. And that's because of what Central Hudson was doing with the bladder and what Central Hudson hasn't done in terms of removing the silt from the lower portion of the Wallkill River. All right? So you can shake your head all you want,
Well, no,
but
that's,
but that's
removing
the
the silt
truth.
from Walker River is actually not under the control of Central Hudson. That's a navigable waterway, and that would not be, that would be Army Corps of
It's already been
Engineers.
looked into. You need a sponsor, so if Central
Well, it'd be
Hudson
the
would
Army Corps of
sponsor it,
Engineers, right.
we could get grant money to get that done. In boiling it all down, I understand where everybody stands on this issue already, all right? The bottom line for me is, I think that until somebody demonstrates to me that we're not adequately protected, I don't want to spend any more money on this,
We're not,
okay?
right? It's
And-
not taxpayer money.
Okay, well,
So you can,
who's going to fund it?
Let me just answer
Go
that
ahead.
question, and then you could...
And can we legally have that happen? Somebody can
Yes,
pay for our
yeah.
bill?
No, let me explain.
have money.
No, no.
Somebody paid us?
No, if you just let me answer, okay? Back, there was an Article 78 with Woodland Pond. As part of the settlement...
Susan.
What?
I don't think we're supposed to discuss that publicly.
No, I don't think it's a problem because we're going to be getting the money. I mean, the money's coming in and we're going to be, I honestly think it's okay because
Okay.
we're getting, okay, there was an Article 78. In order to
Okay.
get the Article 78 dropped, part of the agreement was a $50,000 wetland protection fund was given by the builder to the town and the village. 25,000 went to the village, 25,000 went to the town. 12,500 was paid for back in, like about 3-4 years ago or something, and that was the money that was used for the video that Jeff was talking about. In the contract, the next $12,500 is supposed to have been paid in September of this year.
Okay.
In it, it's specifically dedicated to wetland protection. It can't be used for anything but wetland protection. That $12,500 is forthcoming shortly. I've talked to the people. They said, yes, we've looked at we understand based on the contract that you're entitled to the money, and we will issue the check in a couple of weeks. And so therefore, because that money is specifically for wetland protection, that money can be used for wetland litigation. It just couldn't be used for wetland litigation against them. So we do have $12,500 coming to us. We're being asked to authorize $7,500 because the attorney who took this on for us last time, when we got the decision, his belief and many belief in the environmental community, like Riverkeeper and other people, which is why they want to do an amicus brief, is that the opinion of the judge was so outlandish and so crazy in some ways in terms of his basis, that to let that decision stand as case law for the future to be used for other cases is so bad that in essence, he was so upset, he said, I will basically do this for cost at $7,500 in order to just appeal it because we just need to get that particular case law off the books. Now, that doesn't mean down the road there might not be other problems, but it doesn't seem to be very legal sound reason to throw this out. So therefore, at the cost of $7,500, we've got $12,500 coming in the next couple of weeks, and that's the money that if we should choose to go forward, we would use that money, which is the best way we can use wetlands fund money is to actually help us do this, so.
I have two other questions, short. One question is, this, the current, well, we don't have a current law, but the law that was struck down has certain exempt activities in it. And I'm wondering, is Mohawk Preserve exempt from the application of the wetlands law?
And any activity that is exempt, agriculture, there's no specific entity,
Scenic,
but
scientific preserves, boating, hiking, swimming, and other similar activities, including the establishment of walking trails and recreational use. So that's outside of the regulation.
Well, if Mohawk Preserve wanted to fill in a wetland, they would be subject to our wetlands law.
How about, what's this phrase mean? Activities pursuant to an approved land stewardship plan as defined by section 139(4) of the town law. So that's also exempt.
The preserve has a stewardship plan. I'm not sure if any other, I think the rail trail does.
So there's a specific exemption for those activities.
Unless they are clearly going to violate the wetlands law.
Well, see, I just don't understand why this law is 24 pages.
Oh, I would love to explain
And
that to
who
you.
wrote it? When you look at other wetlands laws, they don't have
It was not
exceptions
24
for land
pages.
stewardship plans.
When I was a young child and I was first on the town board, in all my dewy-eyed innocence, this law was 6 pages. And
So what did you do?
we listened to the public, and they said, oh, but you didn't put this in. And we said, okay, that's another page. And they said, but we need you to put stewardship plans in. We need you to put
So who wrote it?
agricultural
Who really
exemptions.
wrote the law?
I
is
would
my
say it was a
question.
dialogue between the public and the town board, because it was not a 24-page.
There's no way this could be the result of dialogue with the town board when you
Oh.
read through this whole thing. No way.
Katie, can I say something, actually?
Please.
I just got one thing. I'd like to make a motion that the town board,
Before you do that.
I'd like to make a
But I think Jean wanted to say
She can do
something.
it, we can get a second.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the town board take the services of Rappaport and Myers for appeal of the Article 78 filed against the wetland laws not to exceed $7,500.
Plus cost. There's a couple of fun.
Oh, plus cost, plus filing costs.
Doesn't it have to be appropriated from a certain place?
Appropriated from,
Well, where are we going to
From
plus
the
that fund?
wetlands protection
I
law.
think we have a line for that even, don't we?
yeah.
Yeah, to be appropriated from the wetlands, from the line of wetlands protection.
May I second that?
Go
You
ahead.
certainly may. For discussion, apparently.
Okay, no, I think Jean had something she wanted to ask or say, so I'd like Jean to have her.
I would love it.
So here's the deal. As I see it, I heard what Kevin said we spent on it. I heard Kitty, what we didn't spend on it. I heard 12,500 is coming in. I heard 12,500 was spent on a film. 12,500 on a film?
I was not here.
That's a lot of
You were
money.
not here. How much was spent
It's
on the
a-
film?
Yeah, I'm telling you.
So $9,000 was spent on a
This
film,
is
but
not the-
regardless, that was independent of us and
No,
whatever
no,
board
no.
showed.
So there should be 3,500 left
There probably is,
from the original
That's right.
12,500. I'm just thinking money here.
right.
Okay. All right, so 12,500 less the 7,500.
Plus
Add the 3,500 to the $5,000 balance, gives you 8,500. Then you got a thing in there about certain expenses, so let's take another 1,000 out. So that'll leave you with like 7,500. So, and this second payment of 12,500 will wipe out your wetlands protection, research, whatever money that is not taxpayer money. So I'm a little torn about how far we're going to get before with $7,500 left over, how far are we going to get before we start taxing the taxpayer?
Well, first, let me ask you, are you amending the motion?
No, I'm discussing.
Okay.
I'm not amending anything. I'm
Okay, I just didn't
discussing.
know.
I'm talking dollars and cents. And, you know, Kevin's $200,000 to $250,000 figure might be a little off. And Kitty's saying, well, we never spent anywhere near that. That might be a little off. But what I do remember is spending an awful lot of money that I wasn't here for, okay, on the preventing, trying to keep out Lloyd's. And I have concerns about, we really did,
This is not the right map.
I would say we did a magnificent job with the budget for the year 2013. I believe that taxpayers were, although nobody's happy to get a tax bill, the fact that their taxes went down was quite a surprise. It shows that we, as a board, can be realistic, can fund the activities of the town while still providing services. And that's why I have concerns about, I mean, if we're able to make 2 payments for legal services of $7,500, and that's it, well, then I'm okay. But once we end up using up this money, then I have concerns, and I think you guys are going to have a lot harder time getting me to spend taxpayer money after everything we poured into the budget.
So let me just, so we really understand, at least from,
Do you want me to repeat the financial information?
no,
Okay.
We had 12,500, 9,000 was spent, 9, 10, 11, 12, there's 3,500, we're getting another 12,500, that's 15,500, and we're authorizing 7,500, but maybe
Plus
8,500,
yeah.
maybe 8,500, which still then leaves us with, what's the math, another 7,500? So-
7,500.
Okay,
I think we
right,
need to
okay.
just correct, it's not our money. It is not the town's money.
Right.
Right.
It's money we're allowed, it's permissible for us to use it
Yes,
for wetlands protection.
Right.
yes.
But it's
Which
not taxpayers'
apparently-
money, it's,
Right, which apparently spending it defending the lawsuit is an acceptable wetlands protection reason for spending this money. It's not for spending on properties, parcels?
It's for wetlands education and protection.
All right.
So, and Jean, you know, I've done vouchers with you long enough so that I know you really do watch every penny for this community.
Oh, wow.
And I
And
would
more.
just say that it's always hard to prove the cost effectiveness of prevention. I believe this is probably the best investment that can be made in preventing huge costs to the town in the future for polluted aquifers, drinking water. I mean, look at the amount of time we're spending on trying to get affordable, potable drinking water into our community with our new water rates. It's
From
like-
the aqueduct.
Okay, good point, but, you know, but
on.
but you know what? If we ever want to develop our own water supply, it's going to be impacted by
What's the
wetlands
existing
around it.
quality of our water supply? We don't even know.
It will be better if it doesn't have
We should know
parking lot
that
on top of it.
already.
But we know that, we actually do know that we have a good
We actually,
supply
no,
of
we
water.
actually do know there's test wells that have been
How
done.
about the quality of the water? Is it
We
good?
But I wanna
have
say,
test,
you
we
know-
have test wells that have been done both west of the thruway. We have multiple test wells out there. We have test wells that have been done south of our community on town land. The town has 7,000 residents, only 300 of them are fed aqueduct water. If we're going to develop our community, we need to have a clean water source that we are not going to be able to get from the New York City aqueduct. That is a fact.
So our biggest
we
fear is
need-
development then, correct?
Our biggest
So
fear
on
is
our
groundwater
water.
pollution.
which comes from development, doesn't
Or
it?
it comes from a variety of
No,
sources.
it comes from, no, actually, Kevin is absolutely correct. It comes from irresponsible development,
Right.
and that's what this very law is designed to do, to stop irresponsible development. I have lived here long enough, Kevin, and I have watched, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I have watched Tributary 13 go from a nice little tributary that runs from one of the highest points in this community as a gentle little stream we used to gig fish in the fall, in the spring when they ran, to being a horrible, dangerous water course that for the first time in my life and for the first time in a generation previous to mine has ever seen flood Route 32 North. That had nothing to do with Central Hudson. It has nothing to. It has to do with all along Tributary 13's water course. If you want to walk it, which I have done many times, you will see there has been irresponsible building and abuses of the wetlands along it. Thank God we had passed, and you worked on it very hard too, the steep slopes and water course laws. That help protect a lot of it. Tributary 13 is going to continue to be a major problem in this community development, and one of them that we're sitting here, we're going to be discussing again in a very near future, is Waring Lane and the Lent development. That is affected by also that is affected by some land development that was done upstream of it that was not responsible, and then trying to change the water course of water. If you want to read a great book, it's called Control of Nature. One of the
John
most
McPhee.
foolish, John
My hero.
McPhee, Control of Nature. Read it, Kevin. It's one of the most dangerous things you could possibly do is try to control nature. So what you do is you create lands to protect it, work with developers. Look at the Village. They had a developer build a great development right across from the university in the core of the community, and he traded the wetlands there for wetlands in another area. He has now protected it. He has mitigated a problem by creating another area
Right.
that will protect it.
But the village
That's
isn't
the type-
subject to our law, right?
That is the type of development that we need. We need to have smart development.
I agree with you,
And
but
you
let's
need to
talk
protect
about
the
this, though.
environment.
Let's talk about smart
I'm getting
development.
older.
I know you're getting old,
No,
but
I'm
I'm going to finish up. I'm going to finish up.
I want to call the question.
I'm going
I
to
wanna
finish
call-
up.
I
If
wanna
you
call the
look,
question.
if you look at our town map,
I would like to call the question for a vote.
half of the land west of the Wallkill is
Supervisor.
already
Let him
protected.
finish and then I'll just.
Already protected.
Say something.
No, I've called the question, the vote.
All right?
We need to act on a
And
call to question.
and then a final point when it comes to developing our industrial corridor. If you look at Mr. Clauser's report, he says that basically this wetlands law will essentially eliminate any possibility of development along South Putt, because now these areas are going to be part of the wetlands area as well. And that's just my last point.
Okay.
I'm telling you, that is not the right map.
Okay, I just want to say one thing to go back to what Jean said, and then we will just do the vote. Because I just think we need to be sort of all very clear in a sense in terms of, I think what's in front of us for the moment that we're voting on. So I just want to sort of segment a little bit. We also all need to be clear that when the last review happened to the judge, and I don't know if I'm using the right terms, threw it out, or what's the term about,
The last time when?
the reason why we're
This
looking to do
recent time.
this recent time.
When he
He nullified the law,
Okay.
struck it down
Okay,
on
so-
constitutional grounds.
Okay, so, from my understanding, just so we're all really clear and as much information is being shared, when they went down, there were a number of like 10, 13 issues that the law was, whatever. They struck it down on the very first one, right?
13 challenges. So
13
it
challenges.
could go back.
I know, which is why I want to
Okay.
explain. Okay, I want to be very, very clear, because it does address what Jean's saying, and so I think we should be all very, very open, and so the public understands what we're doing, okay, and why maybe some of us are voting the ways we're voting. There were 13 appeals, is that the
13 challenges.
13 challenges. He threw it out on the first challenge. So if we perfect this appeal and it goes back, we could win on that, but it could still be struck down on the other 12 going forward. We could be facing this again.
It
So I-
goes back to the same judge.
Okay, but what I'm just saying is it could go back now, that he could throw it out later on 12 of the other things. So we just need to understand that, and we might be facing this decision again, which might impact how Jean votes or any of us vote in the future. But right now, we're being asked to make a decision based on the ruling in front of us. And at least from my perspective, it's been explained to me by our attorney, by Riverkeeper and other people, that that particular ruling in this particular case is so egregious, if that's a correct term, and even you've said, that, yes, it is a very bad ruling, that in a way, it's our obligation, I believe, to attempt to get that stricken from the books so it can never be used as, what's the term? Case law or precedent in the future.
Against
And so
someone
therefore,
else.
which is why the attorney's saying, I will do it at this cost. It's which why Riverkeeper is saying we will be doing amicus brief and stuff, is because it's so outrageous what he did, that it's so important to get that stricken so it doesn't become case law, that's why it's pretty imperative of us as a board to sort of move forward. Fortunately, we're getting it at a lower cost, and fortunately, we have outside money that's available, so we don't have to go back to the taxpayer, which I think it makes it easier for some of us to move forward and possibly support this because of all of those mitigating factors. So I just want to give the whole history, because we can find ourselves back here again, and we might have to make decisions, but right now, we're deciding on what's in front of us, and what's in front of us, the decision seems to be pretty bad.
And I respect that. And listen, I'm going to say one final thing. I respect all the votes from all of my fellow board members. However they vote, I just have a philosophical objection. And I'm very happy with your decisions.
Okay, so this is what I'm...
I'm fine, Jeff.
What I'm going to say...
Fine with that. Okay, don't be so upset.
All our...
Don't be so upset.
And you did, but if you listen to what he was saying, he was
20 minutes
actually...
ago.
All I want to say, though, is if you actually heard what he was saying, we might have philosophical differences and he respects the way we all have to vote. So
That's it.
Thank you for making that. I called the vote.
Okay, so, Kitty?
Aye.
Jean? Do you want me to come back to you?
No, you don't have to. 7,500 in expenses, that's it, on this
Yes.
particular,
Yes.
to challenge this particular. Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
No.
Aye. Motion so carried.
Now,
I know.
until you run out of money.
But the next time you come back to me with Phoenix, I'm going to remind you that an ounce of prevention,
Kitty,
right, is worth a pound of cure.
Kitty, would you please tell Jean what was the first thing I said to you when you asked?
Dave, your
about doing
report,
this?
you see what it
Do we
says
have the money?
Right.
about developing the
Right.
industrial
I'm
corridor?
with you.
And
It is the money.
as far as I'm
But
concerned,
I wasn't present for that
it is worth
conversation. So how did I know you?
So, no, well, actually, what happened was...
That's true.
Actually, what I can actually say is, can I share that, Jeff, or no? What you just said? No, that originally Jeff wasn't necessarily going to support going forward because we've spent so much money. Then when he found out that they were reducing the rate, he was more supportive, and then when we found out we got the money...
I'm with you, Jean. I'm with you.
That's why I'm letting everybody know that when the next time around, it might be more difficult, that's all.
Show Newport.
We still have...
I got chills, I'm so
Okay.
excited.
I'm with you. I just
So-
want to spend this much money. And then we do have to...
I'm telling you, that's not the right amount.
Okay.
I'll check my office.
All right?
Speaking of state
Okay.
notes, could you print them another one?
Are we going to the appointment of an alternative
Yes, I don't know how to
attorney,
handle
or are we
this.
going to the air
Could you please give me
conditioners?
another one of these?
What?
Thank
I
you
don't
very
need,
much.
come on.
Maybe I'll go up and get it laminated for him, because I think there's gonna, I'm gonna hang an apology note on the wall. Yeah.
Jeff apologizes for vandalism.
I apologize for...
Wait, I had to do this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, good night.
That's what this is about, so if we want to go into executive session to do it.
I have different feelings.
Okay, so I think what we need to do is,
I think we're finally done with you.
you might want to wait 2 seconds. No, I think I'd like Dave to come into the executive session. I think we do have to have executive session on the ZBA attorney, because I think there's some things we have to, will impact potential lawsuits. So I think we do have to do that in
Hi,
executive
Dave.
session.
Remember me?
So
Water and
do you want to
sewer?
do the air conditioners real quick, or do you want to come back and do that?
I want to do...
Can we do what we
everything
have to do? Let's get it all done.
Okay.
Because then we can have
Okay.
the camera
Okay,
and go home.
although we might be taking action, but, What was I going to say? Okay, there's two, there's two things that we have. You all know that we're going through the microphones, trying to blah, blah, blah. You will see tonight that actually that microphone worked really well for
Works
Kevin.
really well.
But also, Kevin, because you were so engaged in this conversation, you sat forward tonight, where
No, but
normally you sit back.
Jana Spilborg is now a radio host on a radio station in the morning. I'm considering the same thing.
Are you really?
I do love doing radio. I go on radio all the time. But no, the truth is, but Kevin, the truth is, you sit back most of the time, but it's because you were so engaged tonight, you actually sat forward and talked into the microphone. So
Are you
anyway.
saying that I'm not engaged at other times,
No,
Susan?
you're engaged,
Is that what you're
but you're
saying?
more relaxed other times. But moving right along.
If you do radio, I'm calling in every morning.
I do radio on Saturday sometimes. I'll let you guys know when I go on again, and it's usually pretty controversial. Okay, so where we're at, we have been trying every imaginable microphone, although these ones are working well tonight for some reason, but we've been trying every microphone. So Chris basically is recommending that we do 5 of the one that Kitty has.
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
5 of those, which means we'd each one have one of those instead of this, that we have to do, and that's $499 each, so 5 would be $2,495.
Wow.
I know, those are expensive microphones. That one is $579.
Is this because we're being sued?
It's because we're being sued, yes.
Actually, is it an actual
No
lawsuit?
comment.
Is it an
Suddenly,
actual-
suddenly this one's sounding pretty good.
These are good tonight, all of a sudden.
Could you, is it an actual
It's a-
suit,
it's-
or
it's
is
a-
it because of an actual
Threat
complaint?
of litigation.
It was a complaint made to the Department of Justice. We just went through mediation, of which Carol spent over 20, 30 hours on mediation. There was no adjudication, and now we're waiting to see if the Department of Justice is going to pick up the lawsuits.
So that's why we need new microphones, right?
But we've been working on this anyway since day one, before the DOJ suit came in. We've been trying to get the sound for the board meetings and for the public. We've been working on it anyway. It's just that once this DOJ thing happened, then we really had to take it, we really had to find a solution. So right now, this is what
By
we...
the way, you just spelled dog. I think you meant DOJ. DOJ. That's
Okay, DOJ, yeah, okay. Well, it's been a doggy process, let me tell you. Okay, so anyway, the one that Kitty's got is $499. The one Kevin's got is $579. $15 for the mic stand. We have to get a new mixer for $349. What Chris was recommending, but we could discuss it, because these are working better tonight, but Chris originally recommended 5 of the ones Kitty has, which would be $2,495. 8 mic stands at $15 each would be $120. $349 for the new mixer, which is even used. And then he suggested we still get 3 of these at $119 each, which would be $357, because again, when we have the village board here, we have to sort of share microphones and stuff. So that would come to a total of $3,321. I just have to say, though, tonight, this is working really well, so.
Are these rented?
These are all Ray Schulke keeps giving them.
Borrowed from who?
Ray,
Ray Schulke.
from Ins and Outs.
From In and Out Audio?
Can we pick these up used?
Not these offers.
We'll see
Chris,
if we
what-
can get a deal on some
There are
pre-owned
mics that
mics.
are, like, they pick up sound from more than one place. Like,
I
if you
think
put
that's-
that one between Jeff and Kevin, will it pick up both of you, or can you try and just see?
The larger mics are going to be more
No.
directional, point to you.
I see.
So if you do tend to lean back, the board can be adjusted to pick you up where, like the microphone that Gene has, tonight, for whatever reason, they're working better. Unless you're right on top of it, like this mic, you're not picking up. But they're designed to pick up,
These ones.
yeah.
They are,
So these are
they all
designed to pick
sound
up
better
more.
tonight. I don't know
They
why.
sound really well tonight. I don't know why tonight it's working. We also,
Question about, Chris, if we spend $3,321, will it also have a system that gets us closer to plug and play? Because at some point, Chris Marks will not be wanting to come here every night, and, I mean,
If you've noticed that now our system is running into the camera.
Oh.
With this box that I had to build as a ground building, all this equipment we put here, so whenever the camera is here, Chris doesn't have to be here, there's the camera people can set up and everything.
Who's Chris?
This way.
Jeff and Kevin like it when Chris speaks in third person. So what you're saying, though, is this is plug and play,
You should come
so
in and talk, you know, up there. so-
if we have the cameraman here, he can set this up. He has to set it up, or he won't get audio.
Right now.
Is that correct? He's nodding his head yes. So if it's incumbent upon the cameraman, then eventually Chris may not have to come here.
Yes, Chris will not have.
That is a good thing.
Except Chris does like to
You are
come,
welcome,
though.
yes, you are welcome here, though.
Chris does like to come, but let me ask a question. Do we, cameraman, do you know, since we, is this, tonight's not the first night this is plugged in? Oh, it is the first night.
That's the
Do we
difference.
know, just out of curiosity, if it's working better? Is this being broadcast live tonight? Do we know if it's, well, I guess we can't get any,
I think we're a little bit of trouble because it's the first time we've done it, so the audio levels were a bit low at first. But we have one battery mic there too to pick it up as well, so together they're working pretty well. The mic that Kevin and you're using sounds much better than those mics through the TV, but all in all, it sounds okay.
okay, but, so that mic does sound better through the
Those
TV?
mics sound better through the TV. Those mics, they do sound better as the night went on.
I want to see if we can get these.
So we should go home and listen. You know, we really should, and see how they're sounding.
They sound
Should I
better
make a
on the
motion?
camera.
It always sounds better.
Gene, make a motion.
Sound much better than the live.
Okay. Well, this is the thing, is that, I mean, unfortunately, in a sense, Ray's been lending us for the past couple of months all of his microphones, and he's at a point right now where we sort of, in a way, have to really make a decision and decide what to do, because he needs his, he runs a business.
Okay.
And right now, he's been really gracious by, you know, coming in and out every meeting, bringing different microphones, trying different things, ordering, and, you know, I mean, there's only so much we can ask of people that, you know. So, I mean, the question is, we also, what's not on this list, which is the cheapest microphones, were the ones that clip on. But again, then you really have to behave.
Yeah, I mean, you
So,
know, you stand up and forget they're on.
Right.
I'm fine with new mics. I would just like somebody to make an inquiry if we can get some of this stuff, maybe
Do you want to make a
used
motion with a cap?
with a
How much to
cap and
spend?
negotiate to the best of your
Okay,
ability.
but let me just ask, let me just
Yes.
make sure that everybody sort of feels, based on after tonight's meeting, that, again, what the recommendation is from Chris is 5 of the microphones that are in front of Kitty, 1 microphone that's in front, no, none, 5 that's in front of Kitty, 8 stands, 1 mixer, and 3 of these microphones. My only question would be, with Kevin, do we still really need that microphone?
Oh, Kevin's getting one of these.
I know, but then now Kevin has to really move even
I think it should be bigger.
I mean, I don't know if we should try that in front of Kevin to see if it works.
Oh,
but-
that's probably a good idea.
It'll work.
Do you want, yeah. Jeff will just,
Okay.
I'll keep
So
pushing it
forward.
so is everybody okay with that configuration? 5 of those, 3 of these, 8 stands.
And 1.
1 mixer.
Yes.
So you want to make a motion to order the microphones as recommended, not to exceed $3,321, but to try to negotiate a lower price for used mics?
Yes.
Yes,
So that's the motion you're making, Kevin?
Yes, it is.
And that's the motion you're seconding, Jeff?
yes.
Where are we taking the money from?
That I haven't figured out yet.
From the rest of the wetlands fund.
I believe,
It's not an acceptable use.
I believe the town board line has always had money, and there is, we're already almost 3 months in, and it does not look like we will be expending our town board line.
No, I don't think so.
We left it with many thousands last year. I think we left it with almost about 8,000 last year, so I am confident that the town board line can afford it.
What about our public access line? Do we have any extra money in there?
I don't think
No,
we'll have extra money. I actually think we might not have allocated enough because we've been having a lot more meetings. Well, I don't know if we
What about our
have...
Time Warner money?
Well, that's the B
oh, that's a
fund,
good, actually,
but that's the B
That's
fund.
B.
Don't we
That's
have
not-
some funds that we have to use for, I thought we had certain funds that we had to use for media purposes.
Well, I mean, technically, I mean, the money we are getting from Time Warner goes to the B fund, and we're buying microphones for the town board, and we're,
Well, no, we're buying them for the town hall board room, which the police commission uses, which is,
but I don't think they don't usually bring
Village
these out,
residents
though.
vote for the town board.
It's
right?
inconsistent,
They should
yeah.
be able to hear
Is
us.
No,
Oh, no,
it's
no,
all
I-
A fund, that's, so it is inconsistent with the Time Warner money.
Yeah, so it has to be
like it's an
fund.
A fund. I
So
think
town
there's
board.
more-
Townwide,
I
yeah.
mean, if we could take it from the, I really don't think we're gonna have enough money in the public access by the time we get done.
We're going to
Town
need
board
Time
line.
Warner money for public access.
Yeah, and the town board line will have money.
Okay, so let's take it from the town board.
Okay, so
It was,
Kevin's motion's amended to say it comes from the town board line, and Jeff seconded it.
yes.
Okay, any more discussion?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion so carried. And the next thing is, again, we said from NYSERDA that they're doing 75% back if you purchase certain items. So Carol did call, and they still have $120,000 left that hasn't been allocated, so...
In matching funds?
Well, no, basically, if we purchase some certain things, we get back 75%.
Okay.
And phenomenally enough, we are going to be getting back, we had to buy a computer for the court for over $3,000, and we're getting back 75%.
So what else do you want to buy?
So we purchased 3 air conditioners last week and 1 printer. Chris has since come back and said that actually the assessor really does need a printer. Her printer's dying, and that we really do need it. And Chris suggested that we needed to do the printer. And then Chris said he needed air conditioners up at the highway garage.
How about
He was gonna take
microphones?
He was going to take
Will
our
they pay for
discuss.
microphones?
He was going to, I don't know.
Why not?
I don't know. We can try to look and see.
Because it's usually, it's in the NYSERDA grants based on
Energy efficiency,
based on
yeah.
energy efficiency.
Right.
not
This is
based on-
definitely not
Right,
energy
right.
efficient.
No.
So, especially, no, we can, what we
Well,
can
I'm
say is,
I'm looking for the E star on
no,
here, too. I
no,
don't
Jeff,
see
we
one.
could say that we're going to cut down on the hot air at the town board.
Again, I don't think
should
these
try that.
qualify.
What?
We should try.
We could try. But anyway, so Chris said he needed 3 air conditioners at the, highway garage. He was going to take our old lousy ones from here, but that's ridiculous, especially when they're going to cost us like $75 each. So you want, so it was 2, but I thought Carol said we were putting in for 3? Was there another one?
2 and 1 printer.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Okay, so it's 2 on 1 printer. Okay, so... Here is the stuff again. So far, we're getting back $4,375. Okay, so why does she have 2 printers and 2 air conditioner lines? I don't know. Okay, so it's 1 printer at,
It'd be the same printer that was approved before.
which was a 390, I think it was 329. Is this the air conditioner or the printer? No, this is the air conditioner. So it's 2 air conditioners at 329, of which will be rebated 75%, and 1 printer.
Top of the page.
We didn't do the 899, we did the 379.
Right.
And 1 printer, 380, of which we'll get back at 75%.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay, and we didn't, I think last time, we didn't really allocate what lines, because it was very late at night and stuff, and, but I guess we could prorate it back to each department that's getting the air conditioners and the printers.
That's what we should do.
Well,
That
yeah,
is exactly where it should
They have to,
go.
like that, the
And-
printer has to come
Yeah.
from the core.
Well,
those have to-
we already got the money, we already spent the money for the court, so we'll put the money back into their line when we get the rebate. We're getting 1 printer for upstairs, so that'll come out of the supervisor's line, and the air conditioner, they'll come out of whatever,
The assessor's line.
Yeah. they're going to come out of your line and the assessor's line.
You're getting a printer?
No, he's getting 2 air conditioners. The assessor's getting a printer.
And what does that mean?
Chris was being very generous to say we could use the building and grounds line for now, and then we should reimburse him, but we aren't doing that, because,
I didn't
Okay.
get the air conditioners today, so they could get the rebate. So I went and purchased 3 air conditioners. The only way I get out of Lowe's that we have an account for is under DG.
and we had to pick them up so we could get the paperwork into NYSERDA to make sure we get the money.
Okay, hold on. So you bought these, okay. And so you have them.
No, those are the ones we authorized last week, not the ones,
Okay. And where are those 3 going?
And town hall. The supervisor's office, the building department, and the assessor's office.
That's where I want them charged,
yeah, that's what we will.
not buildings and
No,
grounds.
we will. He's just saying
Okay.
Come up on there, they don't have accounts at Lowe's.
I understand that. Right,
No, each one gets,
right.
if you look, you'll see.
Okay,
he
did
says
you
to
ever
be- he
sign
said
a
to be-
credit card policy?
no.
Ah,
There used to be a credit card a while ago for Lowe's.
you have a house account?
We have accounts through buildings and grounds, we have accounts.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that.
We have a highway account.
Okay.
Chris, can you also, the disposal of the old ones, can you, I'm sorry, Chris, can you ensure that the units that are not being, they are not, I don't even think they're Energy Star, they are so old, like the rattling one here that's being replaced, could you ensure that they are disposed of accordingly and accounted for?
I will bring them down to Laura, and I have to take them off of inventory.
Yes. Can you make sure that happens, and then that these do not end up somewhere besides either sold as surplus equipment if they are any good, or that they're disposed of accordingly?
They'll be, we will render them inoperable by cutting the cord
Thank you.
and drop them off.
And the free, they do have gas in them that does need disposed.
But
Yes.
Lori's going to sell the parts.
If she can sell the parts, so be it. But thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. So I think the only thing left, if I'm correct, is, and I think it might be good to bring Dave in. So I would like a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing litigation with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we will be back very quickly. This won't take very long.
And it's not an exciting action.
No, so we can sign off and say goodnight to the watching public. Good night.
No, that's fine. You can say, yeah.